colorblind. This is an IOU. Stranded behind the horizon line, tired of the sunken tree.
The acoustic version of Bigger Than My Body from the AOL Sessions starts out with a descending, single-note string skipping melody that sounds like this. Like that. And right off the bat you see I'm using my third finger to do all the slides. And that's just because it's going to lend itself to some chord positions that are coming up pretty fast. So even though it's awkward, because you're behind the nut with your first and second fingers, you're going to want to use your third finger. And the picking, the high E string is always an upstroke and everything else is a down. So down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, like that. So if you follow that basic rule, for the intro melody at least, it'll make things a lot easier. Let's go through the first two measures slow. Another thing you might have noticed there is this G4. We pick the first note and then we slide without picking to get to the next thing. After that we're into the third and fourth measures, and that involves a slide up from the G1. That. So we're sliding up from G1, upstroke on the high E, and we're going to do this chord. We're taking the second finger and putting it down on the D2. And we're going to lift off and fret the G1 with our first finger. Like that. So we get into this alternating thing. So down on the G1, down on the low E, and then upstroke on the high E and B. So those two measures one more time. Sometimes cheat a bit on the upstroke downstroke rules here. So those first four measures from the top. When you're doing this melody, make sure you're constantly pumping notes into it. There's a minimum 8 notes per measure. Don't do what some people do on YouTube. You'll see they'll do half the notes basically because they don't have the string skipping thing down. So you want to have those all ringing. Because if that low E isn't ringing as you're doing the descending, it doesn't sound as good. So make sure you pump all the notes into this thing that you are supposed to. Measures 5 to 8 repeat the same thing more or less with a few minor differences. One of them is we're sliding up into the G7 here. And we were doing a chord that had our first finger on the G. So you're just going to want to insert it on the path here and slide the third finger into the G7 here. That's measures 5 to 8. Let's do that slow. So coming off of that chord. Part's really nice. So just coming into the 7th measure, we're going to slide up with the G1 here, our third finger, into the G2, hit our high E, go back to the G2. Second finger is going to go on the D2 and do the complete it. One more time. Let's do measures 5 and 8 slow. Measures 9 to 12 start the singing portion of verse 1, and he's changed up the melody a tiny bit to make it easier to sing over. Gone is the string skip to the low E. He's playing around on the open B and high E strings. it's kind of neat. This is a call to the colorblind. This is an IOU. So he follows the melody. So that part is the G7. We get to this part, we're just going to follow the melody of the vocal. With an extra G1 on there. So that's slide up from the D2 to the D4. And then the two notes below that. Let's do that slow. Measures 13 to 16 continue the singing portion of the verse. Sounds like this. There's one thing I don't like, measure 15. I find it's rushed. I like to substitute measure 7. It's a lot nicer, fits in just the same. So let's do that whole thing from the top. We're sliding into the G7 here, like we've seen before. That's the part I want to draw your attention to. Measure 15, we have a quick slide from the G1 into the G2. And it's actually sounding the high E and B. And then a pull, like a slide from D4 to D2. And then pick twice. Before going to the open B. And then the low E. Like that. And like I suggested, just substitute measure 7. It's a lot cleaner. Before heading into measure 16, like most John Mayer songs, as I've found, when he transitions into another part that requires a chord change high up, he takes everything off and he strums the open strings down, up. And we're usually in the neighborhood of the top 3 strings closest to you. Let's do the whole thing from the top, sliding in from the G7. Measure 17 is the start of the pre-chorus. This is a lot of fun. These are the high chords, etc. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk about transitioning to this section, because we're going to be coming off some low fretted chord. And what I did there, and what Mayer does to get up high, is as we transition from the low chord, we lift our fingers off, and the hand starts traveling up the neck, and then the pick hand is going to go down, up, with open strings. And then we're ready to start the measure. So it's a little minor detail. No one ever talks about this, but Mayer does this in every single one of his songs pretty much. So as you're transitioning from a low chord to a high chord, or a high chord to a low chord, we have these open string, the first 3 strings open, down, up, really quick before getting in the next bit. And in other versions of this song, he'll sometimes throw in 3 open string strums. So he'll go da, da, da. I'll try to do 2 really slow. That's the 3 open strums, and then here's the 2. So minor detail, chuck it in there though, because it's important. So let's get to measures 17 to 20. They feature 4 chords, an E, a D add 9, and I'm just picking the first 4 notes of each on the guitar. We have a C sharp minor 7, and then this really nice A minor 9th with no 5th. And you're going to be wanting to practice the transition between those chords so you can get to them really fast. And let's look at the rhythm for measure 17, because it's pretty much the same for the 2 measures after that. So it's, that's all it is. 2 downstrokes with the full chord, 5 strummed rhythmic bits, starting with a downstroke, down, up, down, up, down. The last one's accented, the fifth one's accented. Back to the 2-chord downstroke, and then we have the transitory open string before we're going to the next chord, and repeating the same thing. And the last one is a bit different. We do 3 on that A minor 9th chord. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2. So let's do that. Let's do it to speed. And one thing I'm going to show you here is occasionally on other recordings of the song, for the rhythmic muted strumming part, he does 4 instead of 5. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Throughout this version of the song, if you listen to the studio recording, he's always doing 5. 5. But sometimes he'll go weak on the first upstroke that you can do, and it sounds like this. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he skips over that second upstroke, and you hear this like that. It's kind of hard to get, but the difference is, and the 4. And let me just play it for you in context. I'm going to vary. The first time I'm going to do 5. Next time I'm going to do 4. Next 5. Next 4 like that. You'll see what I mean in a minute. One more time. So it really adds some diversity if you change that up. So he's missing that first upstroke. He wants to do this, but he's doing this instead. It's kind of a neat thing. And yeah, that's pretty much that. You go through that. This part. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Then you repeat it again. And you stay on that A minor 9th chord for a lot longer. What we're doing is we're hitting the high part of the chord and then the low part and then just alternating that. This is a common rhythm you'll find in the song Drive. And then he goes into the chorus. And that's pretty much that. So yeah, that's just what the takeaway is: the transitionary bits and the rhythmic strumming. And again, you can vary the pick placement for those in order to get the accents different. I usually start off with the 3 bass strings, 1, 2, and then 3, 4 in the middle, and then 5 is all 6 strings muted. So don't be afraid to. And you want to get that underlying, you kind of want to get this galloping kind of rhythm going. That's a really fun part. Measures 26 to 37 are the first chorus, and we're coming out of the that is the chorus. Let's look at the chords we're doing. This is a C sharp minor 7. Exact same notes as the one up here. Not even a different voicing because the notes are exactly the same. But what we're doing is we're hitting the full chord, and then the bass parts of it, or the bottom end of it, and then a little embellishment with the pinky at the E7. So again, we have that, whole chord or the top end of the chord, and then the bass end. But in this case, we're adding the pinky at the E7 to make it sound kind of neat. And I work that in as kind of like a moving note to an E chord, an A sus2 chord. And again, we have the double strums, sometimes open strings, as we transition to new chord. Double up on the chord itself. again, throughout, it's like full chord, and then the low end, and then the full chord, and the low end, for this kind of... And that little embellishment is really nice off the C sharp minor 7th. You can get a neat little under rhythm. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. So that is pretty much the chorus. Verse 2, I'm going to go off the beaten path a bit. If you look in the tab, measure 94, I've got this thing called alt second verse. And what this is, it's what I played in the performance video. It's some of the live Eddie's Attic stuff he does when he plays this tune. He does this. Part is the same, but all that stuff at the beginning is different, and I was missing it from the track I chose to transcribe, so I threw it in because I thought it was really cool. I'm pretty sure you're going to think it's cool too. So coming off that chorus, that A sus2, we do a... This is how we end it off to get into the lick. So we go, and then third fret of low E, bend it up, and then land with your first finger on the D2, and then we're into this part. And that's pretty much it. What I just played should match the tab pretty good if I remember it, but this is a feel thing. You can kind of do whatever you want. The pull-offs, you can do all kinds of different variations if you want. Let's go through that slow. So going into it, we have this E chord. So we hit the E, and lift off, and then back to the E chord. And then it's a series of muted. And then we have this one kind of E3 bend up. So it's kind of what I do there. Then we have this nice chord. Hit it twice, 2 downstrokes. So nice thing. Then we're back to the low E. That part is third fret of the low E again, and then a series of pull-offs. So that's third fret of the E, open, then we have the D2, back to the E3, back to the D2, G2, and then E3, and then upstroke, downstroke, and then we're into the regular part of the song. So let's play that slow, starting from the end of the chorus. And that's one of the neat merisms that he throws in. Measures 38 to 45 are the slightly less exciting but normal verse 2. It's different in its own right. It starts off like this. Which is kind of neat. So what we're doing is we have the G7 and we're raking down all the strings underneath it, coming up on the high E. Before going into familiar territory. So that's kind of neat. This part is the same. Then we get into this. That's the part that follows the vocal. Shed the skin, I've been tripping there. So that's... And the ending chords for that are a bit different. They're kind of top heavy. Instead of the alternating between the low E and the high part of it. So let's do that from the top. that's the boring verse 2. So if you're like me and you want to substitute the regular verse 2 for the kind of alt verse 2 with all the pull-offs, after the pull-off section, just go to the and you can end that phrase to get into it again. That sounds like let's try that again. So just pull off on the E3, pull off on the D2, back to the E3, and then I prefer that one. Coming out of the ending of the second chorus, we do a D chord for 2 measures, starting at 48, 49. Let's go forward a bit and get into that. Here it is. Just like that. And it's this typical full chord, lower portion, high chord. Get that drive. A couple double strums in there. The interlude. Measures 50 to 57 are what I'm calling the interlude. We have a couple of options here. What some people do when they cover the song is they'll take the chords from the chorus, the C sharp minor 7, the E, and the A sus2, and they'll just boogie on them a bit without singing, and that gives them this kind of thing. So you're not singing over it and you're changing up the rhythm, and that can be considered, you know, a break from the normal chain of things. But what Mayer does in this particular track is one of his patented bass note chord solo type things, and these are great. I'm a big fan of these and he's well known for them. What he's doing is he's actually going to be popping the bass notes at the same time. He's got these chords on top that, and he's muting all the bass notes that you don't want to hear and adding little embellishments. So let's go over what he's doing there, and you can make this your own. I'm not going to show you exactly what he does is on the recorded track. That's all on the tab if you want to get that down, but I'll show you the chords and some of the little embellishments he throws in. And I hope people do this one instead of the other option. So let's start with a octave chord. There's 3 chords and he kind of cycles through them. Let's start with that. We have our first finger on E9, third finger on D11. And we're muting the A string in between and the 4th string, but we're letting the 2 high strings ring out. Pretty nice sounding thing here. And we just start with it. Chunk on it a bit like that. And the next thing has us taking that down a couple strings. And we have our first finger on D9. And our third finger is on G11. We're taking our first finger and we're lightly touching the 5th string, the A here, to mute it. And we're going to let that open E ring, and it sounds like this. And we're going to chug away on that like this. Something like that. And then we're going to slide that up. We're going to slide that up. We're going to make a small little muting change. We're going to take our first finger off of muting the A, let that ring, and our thumb is going to come up and mute the low E. So that one sounds like this. We're getting a bit of the high end sometimes, sometimes not. And then another thing that'll sometimes happen, although that shape is the same, when he gets up to the highest part, he'll take the second finger and put it down on the B12. So we have this kind of thing. Later on the second pass, he takes his pinky and puts it down on the D14, and then lifts it up to get a sus kind of thing happening. Let's just look at that slow. Second pass. So what I did there was octave with the muting in between. Quickly switch to this one. We're muting the A string, letting the low E. When we slide it up, we put our thumb to mute the E, and we take the first finger off the A, so that's vibrating. Second finger goes down on the D12. So So we have this. Then we do the whole thing again. All the muting is in place. This time when we slide up, we get set with our pinky on the G14, and we have the G13 being fretted by the third finger in back of it, and we do this kind of thing. And that's that. Let's just go through it slow one more time. And that is one of his famous chord solo things. I love the way these are constructed. I don't know if he starts off with this kind of thing where he's got all these open strings and some high bass notes, and then it fits in so perfectly, it's almost like it was written first. Measures 58 to 70 are the bridge, and that's this thing. And that's actually the repeatable phrase. You do two of those, and then the beginning of it, and then we end off a bit different. So let's look at this. 3 chords to start with, and they're double stops, or fifth chords as you want to call them. The first one has an F root, and I have my first finger on the D3, and the third finger is on the G5. It's for an F and a C note. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's why I call it a fifth chord. Then we're sliding up 2 frets. So our first finger is on the D5 in the same shape. Then we're sliding down, so our first finger is on the D2. And our pinky now is playing the G5. And then we end it like we started off at the 3rd fret of the D. And the rhythm is like this. So we're achieving the muting by palm muting and then lifting off for the chord and then we're doing some muted strumming, and to do that we're lifting off the pressure of the fret hand. So there's a lot of techniques going on to get that. For the parts where the chords are sounding, no palm muting, pressing down, we're muting everything on the bottom and top. Getting that driving, this kind of thing. So try to keep that kind of rhythm in mind, but we're doing a lot of little accenting with the palm muting and the open chord stuff, and then the scratches in between. So we do that thing twice. One thing I try to key on is the part where we're doing the double. Get 1, 2, 1, like that near the end of the phrase before you start it again. Let's do it one more time, slow. And it's constructed so that when you're doing the scratches, you're doing down, up, so you're ready always to start each measure with a downstroke or each part. So you do that twice. And then the last bit, actually there's only 3. What we're doing there is we're doing just the first part of that. Sliding up to this neat chord with our second finger on the A9, first finger on the D7, third finger on the G9. We're muting the low E and the stuff underneath, and we're like, same thing where we're picking the whole chord and then just the root part, and then the whole chord and then the root. And then the next measure after that, we're taking our thumb and fretting the 7th fret of low E. To add a different flavor, we stay on that for a long time, and then just before it ends, we're going to take our pinky and go to B10, hit that note, and we're going to hit that 3 times. 1, 2, 3, before open muting thing and going into the next part. So let's just do that slow. And then we're into the 3rd pre-chorus. That part is kind of nice. Measures 71 to 80 are the last pre-chorus, and they feature a bunch of stop and start chords with the 4 chords that we were playing before. Salsa while I'm waiting for my fuse to dry. Waiting for it. And then we go into the chorus. The last chorus. So they're just those 4 chords. Da-na, wait. Wait some more. Measure 76 is kind of neat. It's got this before going into the last chord and holding that for a couple of measures. So that's simple enough. Just do the chords. Hit twice and wait before hitting it one more time, and then doing the up-down transition to the next chord. Except for this part. If you can remember to check that in, it's a nice rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're pretty much at the end. After that, we go into the last chorus. But it ends a bit different. This neat chord again. We're ending it off like that. And it's the now part before we go into the from the intro. So we do that intro like we did before, but the second time we start to slow down. And we're late on that 6th fret to 4th. We never make it down to the end. We kind of end on that 4th fret on the G, and then we do this chord. That is the 2nd chord that we're usually used to, and then the C sharp minor 7th chord, and then finally ending on the E with the open low E, and you're done. Hope you enjoyed Bigger Than My Body. If you stick around, I'll get the Adrenalinn pedal out and just talk a bit about the studio version of it. Here's a bit of value-added stuff on the Adrenalinn III effects pedal and the arpeggiator effect used in Bigger Than My Body in the studio version. This is the pedal he used to get that amazing effect. When I first heard that, I thought he was doing some kind of volume potting thing where he's fingering with the volume down and then turning it up. But the arpeggios are so fast you can't. There's no way. So I saw him live later that year, and his keyboard player was doing these big swirly things, and I thought, okay, that's it. But it was years later that I found out on the handy dandy internet that it was this thing called the Adrenalinn pedal. So here's the guitar, clean. Let's start with some drums. Very important to have rhythm behind this because it is a timed effect. So you get the wonderful thing about this effect is you get this wonderful when you're muting. You get this wonderful sound of the arpeggiator coming out, even though you're just striking the strings, not making any chords. And if you're in the key of E, it works really nice. Chords anywhere in there sound good. Wonderful effect. There's an excellent tutorial from Lick Library where this guy breaks down Bigger Than My Body with the pedal, and the only thing that stops it from being a great tutorial is the guy does not use the timing effect, doesn't have the drum beat in the back, so he starts it off and it sounds like absolute shit and he doesn't seem to notice. But if you have the timing, makes all the difference. So that is it. Go get yourself one of these if you have the coin, because they are amazing.